welcome to Dominating Dominion. I'm Ben.
I'm Zach. Look at this.
I think he's excited to play Renaissance.
I am. Yeah, that's what we're playing.
So, we just random 10 cards in Renaissance?
Gotta keep the box looking nice.
We'll see what happens.
Is there anything we should say about new mechanics before?
There's new tile that is your villager and coffer tile.
Coffers are coin tokens. We will call them coin tokens probably because we're used to it because we've been playing with guilds for years. But coffers are coin tokens. They work exactly the same. So my complaints last episode were heard. They're back. Coin tokens.
And then the other one is the villagers, which they're similar to the coffers, except instead of giving you a coin, they give you an action.
Yep. Otherwise, we're going to have projects. It's like a thing you pay money for, and then you get that every turn for the rest of the game, pretty much, for most of the
Or whatever the effect is.
Yeah. And then
Artifacts, which come with certain piles.
It's like a card you get to keep once you've acquired whatever you need to do with the artifact to get it. So those are the really only new things you'll see this game. So let's check out the cards.
Today, we have Ducat, Lackeys, Acting Troop, Hideout, Mountain Village, Silk Merchant, Recruiter, Scepter, Villain, and Swashbuckler. We also have two projects. We have the Fleet and the Guild Hall.
We also include a treasure chest because the Swashbucklers played with it. Alright. So, I've got 4. I'm going to take a hideout.
4, I'm going to take a Silk Merchant. When you gain this or trash it, plus a coffer, plus a villager.
I've got 3. So. Oh, and when I... oh no, I have to pay for that. That's right. It's not one of those things.
You're right. 2,
Gotta pay for it.
Ducat, which I can trash
I was wondering.
a copper from my hand.
I was thinking of doing that, but I just wanted the bigger money. I've got a hideout, so I get a card, 2 actions, and then I trash a card from my hand. That one. If it's a victory, I would have gotten a curse. It was not. It was copper. So I've got 4. I'm going to take me. I want this. No, I'm going to take a Silk Merchant. So I also get a coffer and villager.
Silk Merchant, draw 2 cards. I've got 3. I'm going to take an Acting Troop.
I'm going to take Lackeys. So when I gain this, I get 2 more villagers.
I play Ducat, which gives me a coffer and a buy. And I've got 4. I'll make it 5. I'll get a Recruiter.
Silk Merchant. And then I'm going to call a villager to do another action. I'm going to play a hideout. I'm going to trash a card. I shall trash that. And then I've got 5. I'm going to take me a Recruiter as well.
Acting Troop. I trash this and I get 4 villagers. And that's it.
Lackeys, 2 cards. I'm going to call one of my villagers for an action. 2 recruiters, I get 2 more cards. And then I'm going to trash this estate for 2 villagers. Then I'm going to call another villager here to do a hideout. And I shall trash this copper. I've got 5. gonna take me a villain.
Recruiter, draw 2 cards, trash a card. It's in state, which costs 2, so I get 2 villagers. And I've got 5. I'm going to buy the guild hall, so that way when I gain a treasure, I get a coffer.
I'm gonna play a recruiter. I'm going to trash an estate for 2 villagers. I'm gonna play a villager here to play a silk merchant for 2 cards. Play another villager here to play a hideout. And get my card 2 actions. I'm going to trash this copper. Got 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna call one of my coffers here, and I'll have 5. And I'm also gonna get the guild hall.
Silk Merchant, 2 cards. To cut. 3. I'll make it 5 for a scepter, which gives me a coffer.
Gonna do a recruiter. Trash an estate. Get me 2 more villagers. I'm gonna do a villager here to play a villain. I get 2 coffers. Then each other player with 5 or more cards in hand must discard 1 costing 2 or more. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I shall take a gold. Oh. And my coffer.
Recruiter, draw 2 cards. Trash an estate for 2 villagers. 3 plus a Ducat. With 3, I'll take a silver and a copper.
Got me a hideout. Gonna trash me a copper. Then I'm gonna play a recruiter. Trash this lackey for 2 more villagers. I'll play a silk merchant. 2 cards and fly on that. And I'm gonna call a villager here to play the villain to get 2 more coffers, and you must discard. And I've got 3, 5, 7, 8. Yep.
Silk Merchant. And I've got 4. Make it 5 and get a villain.
Ben's got a lot of villagers.
I do.
I'm going to do a villain, get 2 coffers. Then you got to discard. Got 5. I'm going to pay 3 coffers, so I have 8. Province.
Recruiter, draw 2 cards. Trash a copper. Call a villager to play a villain.
A villain! See a province.
I'm going to do a scepter during my buy phase and pretend it's a villager, or a recruiter. Because I can replay an action card that's still in play. So I get 2 cards, and I trash 1. And I've got 1, 2, 3. Province.
I'm going to play a hideout. Trash this copper. A silk merchant. A villain. I've got 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to take a gold, which the guild hall will give me my copper. Or coffer. It's different.
Silk Merchant. And cut. Got 3. I'll play this for 2 coins for 5. 6 gold.
Alright, I've got a villain. Get 2 coffers. And I've got 5, 8 profits.
Recruiter. Draw 2. Trash 1. Another villain. Got 3. 5, 6, 7, 8 profits.
Hideout. I'm gonna trash the Kappa. Play a Silk Merchant. Then a villain. I get 2 coffers. I've got 3, 6. Taking a gold, and I get a coffer.
Silk Merchant. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 province.
We're gonna play a recruiter. I'm gonna trash this hideout. Get 4 villagers. And I've got 5. Take a fleet.
Recruiter. Draw 2. Trash a copper. And I've got 6. I'll buy a fleet.
A Silk Merchant. I get 2 cards. I call a villager for a villain. 2 coffers. You discarded. And I've got 8. I'm going to do a province and then use 2 coffers here to get an estate.
Silk Merchant for 2 cards. And a villain for 2 coffers. Play villager. And then I've got 5. A duchy. And you have to discard a card.
Recruiter. Shall trash the Silk Merchant here for 4 villagers. I'm going to play a villain with a villager to get 2 coffers. Then I've got 3. Use 2 coffers. Get me a duchy.
Villain. Got 4. Make it 5 for duchy.
And I got 8. A province, but that's not game over yet.
There's an extra round. So, Silk Merchant. 4. Keep that. I get a duchy. But I think you win.
Oops. Draw that. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'll buy just with 5 a duchy. 37.
27.
Good game. All right, so that was our first game of Renaissance on the show. Should we just dive into the cards here?
Sure.
What do we want to start with? Do we want to start with the projects, or do you think the Kingdom cards would be the best
It's
place
like
to
Kingdom cards.
start? Okay, so let's start with Ducat.
So, completely unrelated to Dominion, but every time I see this card, I think of a character from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Gul Dukat.
I do too, even though Ducat is an actual thing, as you see in the card.
Yes. But, this is a nice little 2 card. I do like that it...
It might be my favorite 2 card.
Really?
It might be. I'm thinking it, just because I love it. And I love treasures, so.
I like that when you gain it, you can trash a copper from your hand, so it gives a little bit of an added value, because it's just a little bit better than a copper.
You downgraded to pick one of these up. So you felt it was definitely worth it.
I wanted to get that extra buy, and then the ability to save a coin token or coffer between rounds, so that way I could get higher value cards maybe a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I always love the coffer mechanic I love. So this is just a nice, really simple way to do it. It's not the best one to generate, but the fact that you get to trash one of your starting coffers, I would much rather have this than a coffer. So
Yep.
I kind of view it as replacing that. Maybe a silver. Sometimes saving that coffer for later at a key moment can be important, but the silver, since it generates more, that's why this is a 2 card.
Yep.
But yeah, the buy is important too for this one. Like I said, I think it's one of my favorite 2 cards. I played a couple games before we did this one where I got a couple of these just to keep generating coffers. So I didn't go with this game. I didn't need it. But I like it. Ducat gets a thumbs up for me here. And I think it's a decent card in the set. You thought it was a decent one in the set?
Yep.
All right, next up, another 2 card. Lackeys.
I like this card.
It is a very... the thing I will say I like about it is it's just simple. It's like, you're going to play for the rest of the game, 2 cards. But when you first pick it up, you'll get 2 banked actions for later.
Yep. And I think that's the reason you go this card more than the +2 cards.
Oh, yeah. I don't think a lot of people are going to pick it up for 2 cards. Because, like, even Moat. We don't care for Moat too much. Because it's like, we're just getting 2 cards. Sure, it blocks the attack. But you have to have it in your hand.
Yep.
And the benefit for playing it's not great. So the same case is here for Lackeys, but the bottom part I like a lot just because who knows when you'll need a villager to play an action card.
Yep.
So it's definitely a nice card, especially I think I trashed this later on.
Yeah.
I really like this card when you can trash it with something that turns it into something else, like your remodels. I'm trying to think of a card in this set, I think.
Recruiter turned it into more villagers.
Yeah, that's an example. So those benefits for trashing these cards make it even better. So you can feel free to pick them up and just be like, oh, I'm going to trash it next turn anyway, but at least I got some villagers. Acting Troop.
This is a pretty nice 3 card.
Like the artwork. It's actually, this might be one of my favorite artworks on the card. Actually, Renaissance as a whole. I think I like the artwork a lot for these cards. But mechanic-wise, Ben, what do you think?
Well, when I first read it, I thought of Feast.
I was wondering how long we get to mentioning that.
The only way that this card is valuable is if you trash it as an action, but it gives you +4 villagers, which is really nice to have 4 villagers for 4 later actions whenever you need them. The one thing I could have seen doing differently with this card was maybe make it 4 in a reaction action. That way you didn't have to use your action to trash it.
I'm kind of fine with it, though. Getting 4 villagers off of a 3 card seems pretty powerful to me, so I get why the trash mechanic's there. It might be weaker in other sets. Like this one, I can see it being a little weaker because you have a lot of cards that generate actions.
Yeah, like I picked up an acting troop. I don't think I needed it.
Oh yeah, you had a whole pile of villagers there, so
shuffles never happened the way I wanted them to happen.
Yeah, I definitely think the villagers. You probably didn't need Action Troop in this one as much, especially if you got the 4. But if you had nothing else you wanted to buy and just wanted to be sure, picking it up's not bad. I really like this card when you get a set that maybe none of the other cards give you actions, because then you got to actually think about how you want to use these villagers that you get, because there is a limited amount of extra actions you're going to get. We haven't had a game like that yet, but I'm excited to do something like that.
Yep.
But yeah, Acting Troop, like it.
Hideout. I don't think I've picked this up in any of the games we've played with Renaissance.
I've picked it up every time because I like trashing. And this is a village with a trash mechanic. It basically is that. Yep. The cool thing about it is it's not as powerful as other trash cards because you can't trash your victories. Because who wants to trash a victory to get a curse? Unless you have something. There's one other Renaissance card where I think it's Old Witch might affect your curse ability to trash it. Where you're like, okay, I'll be able to trash this if an Old Witch is played. But otherwise, it's like, eh. But in this set, for me, I was using my hideouts to trash the coppers here.
Yep.
And then my victory cards, I was like, I'll use something like Recruiter to trash those. So both those cards in tandem helped me keep my deck pretty efficient. And this made it that I didn't need as many villagers. So I didn't have to constantly pick up cards that needed villagers. So I knew I was going to have enough actions off of the action cards this game. So I definitely think it's one of those villages you can buy early on. Because a lot of people will buy it, and it's okay if you want to make sure you get them if you're worried the pile's going to go, but it's not going to get you off to a great start right away, whereas this at least has the trash, so it's getting rid of these quick.
I think it's definitely one you want to pick up earlier rather than later.
So is there a reason you haven't gone it at any of the games, or is it just...
There were pretty much in almost every other game we've had another method to trashing all the other cards. And I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, it's just one card.
Plus with the villager mechanic, you don't really need the extra actions half the time. But you saw me, I had like 10 villagers there this game.
Yeah, it's definitely how you think about it, too. Like, you got to plan out your actions a little more now. Because usually it was just a matter of, you don't want to buy too many, like, 2 action cards or else you're not getting the value. In this, you got to now think about the fact that you've got villagers that you can save up instead of going these. So keep that in mind as you're planning your strategies. Whether you should be picking up more of these, or if it's better time investment to just pick up something like the recruiter or the acting troop to get just a few more actions later. What's next?
Mountain Village.
Oh, this is an actual village. The village for Renaissance. Do we cover the village for Nocturne? They had at least one. I think 2. Who knows? What do you think of Mountain Village?
I don't think I've ever bought it.
I've bought it. Didn't go at this game. But...
Every time we've played a Renaissance game, there has been 2 trash cards in the Kingdom cards. And when you have that many trash cards and the availability to get rid of all your cards, you don't really have a discard pile.
Which then this is just a village. I've played with this and been able to take cards out of my discard. Hugely powerful.
I think it's a very, very
That's
good
what
card
makes this card great.
once you have your discard. But if you don't have a discard,
it's just a village, so you really only go
overpaying for.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have this and a village in the same set, which I doubt, unless you're gonna have the discard pile, always go to the village.
Yep.
But otherwise, like even if like you're not gonna have the discard pile and you need the 2 actions, still consider it because 2 actions can be good depending on what you're doing. Just in this set, though, there were so many other options.
Yep. Silk Merchant. I like this because it gives you 2 cards in a buy, which is nice. But the nice part is more when you gain or trash it, you get a coffer and a villager.
That's what makes this a 4 card, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's just a 3 and a poor one at that because it's a moat and you get a buy. Which the buy can be important. Don't get me wrong, but the bottom part is where you go, oh, I like that.
Yep, and especially when you can trash it and get more things for it. Like in this set, you could trash it and get 4 villagers with the Derelict card.
I think I trashed this during the game, and I didn't pick up my coffer and villager. Got to reshoot the whole episode.
Oh, guess it doesn't count.
But yeah, I like this. A lot of the cards actually have this gain it and when you trash that card.
I like those mechanics.
That's cool. It's just something a little added on to it. So, I don't know how many cards we've got that are simply a draw and a buy.
Very few.
I can't, like, when I first saw it, I was like, I can't think of many off the top of my head that do it. And I know there are a few probably, but there's few and far between, so it was cool to see something just even simply different from a lot of other cards.
So I'm trying to compare this to Woodcutter, which is 2 coins in a buy for 3. I honestly think 2 cards in a buy is more valuable than 2 coins in a buy.
I do too. Just because, especially in an engine, which if you're going an engine, you want the buys more, so I think that makes it way more valuable. But yeah, that's the Silk Merchant. So not much to say about it. It's not going to be a brilliant card on its own. I think it's definitely a good engine one.
And it's going to be good if you can trash it as well, because that's the second half of the card.
Yeah. And yeah, so even if you're like, I don't care so much for the top part, might as well get it for maybe the coffer into the villager that you might find value in, and then trash it. Especially if you can turn it into something else. Because this is a 4 card. You can turn it into a 5 or a 6. I think that's a pretty big bonus, because you're also getting then, in total, 2 coffers and 2 villagers off of it.
Don't pick it up just to trash it. I don't think that's worth it. I would pick it
up.
Yeah.
As long as you turn it into something else.
Well, no. Even like, if you were to just buy it and then next turn trash it,
I'd remodel it. Early game, I would. I would try
Yeah.
to turn it into a gold, and with this bottom part, that makes it even more valuable to me. So a strategy I would go, since I love remodeling, would be to do that.
I could see it.
I wouldn't do it just like unless I needed a card to trash.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? Like Recruiter, what we're going to talk about next, where you have to trash something. This could be decent to pick one up just for the intention of, hey, I'm going to trash it with my Recruiter.
Which next is Recruiter.
The Recruiter.
I like this card. I like it because you get your 2 cards, and then you can trash a card, and you get saved actions based on how good the card is.
Yeah, it's not my favorite 5 card yet, but I see a lot of potential for it. Just like the 2 cards isn't so impressive, like we've been saying. Drawing 2 cards isn't as impressive as 3 cards with a Smithy. But the fact that you can do all this bottom stuff really saves the card, in my opinion. Being able to bank the village. This is how you got most of your villagers.
Which I was expecting to get this plus my Silk Merchant
Mm-hmm.
quite often, which is what I was going to use my villagers for, but it never happened.
If you, it'd be fun to do a game where you have the Recruiter, and maybe that's the only way you can generate more actions to see somebody pull off a cool engine.
Yep.
Because you could trash a 5 card for like 5 villagers and then do your engine off of that.
Yep.
That's what I really like about that mechanic, I think, is just thinking of ideas to pull that off instead of just having to buy the cards to stack them all. Next up is the Scepter.
I give this card an okay. It all depends on what's in your set.
I don't care for the 2 coins. Otherwise, just pick up the silver.
Yep.
So you're really just buying this for the second ability. It is nice to have the +2 for the flexibility if you really don't want the action, but if you're not going to use it for the action, which I don't know if you did or didn't.
I think I might have used it once, but it was...
Which you would say probably not worth it.
It was not
once.
worth getting this game.
I think it is going to be a really well-liked card, because a lot of people like throne rooms, and this is along those lines where you get to play actions again.
Yep.
And the cool thing about this compared to a throne room is, after you've done your whole engine and you have all your cards laid out,
Then you
can use this on whatever you played instead of having to get the 2 cards together that you want to play multiple times. So I think that's the power of Scepter. I think maybe if we play with it more, our opinion will go up once we really learn how to master that second part. Because otherwise...
There has to be for the second part to be good, there has to be a card you want to double.
Yeah.
And in this one, the only one that might be okay or worth doubling would be the Swashbuckler, which neither of us went.
Yeah. I can see doing it on a villain, but at that point,
it's
I would just pick up
2
another villain.
coffers for 2 coins. That's just you just transfer it.
Yeah, it has the attack part to it. You're
But
only
if you
do it once.
Yeah, it only works once.
I think there's some opportunity for it to be pretty good. Maybe not this set specifically, but especially maybe mixing this with other kingdoms.
Yeah.
I think you could get a lot of power out of it. All right, we're on to villain. I think it's one of the... There's, 2 attack cards in Renaissance? There's not many, but this is one of them.
I think it's an interesting 5 card. I don't know if I like it or if it's just okay.
The attack isn't powerful. I will say that just because every time you played it,
You got rid of a province.
I got rid of a province, which... Ooh. That might hurt me if I was going to play and expand from prosperity and turn it into a colony. But otherwise, most times, especially with a province, you're fine with that.
Yep.
If this is an early one, I could see it hurting. Like if this is what you buy on your 5-2 split. Because you're getting 2 coffers, which is
Well, the
great.
only thing then is if they have the estate, they can get rid
But
of
what
the
if they
estate.
want to trash them and
That's
turn
true.
something else? Because I would think that going this card, just to take away that opportunity. I think you're really going with it, though, for that 2
coffers.
And I know you played something. I don't know if you used Scepter before to double this in another game we played or if it was another card. But you were doing it pretty nicely every turn.
It was a project that allowed me to...
Oh, okay.
The first action I played, I got it twice.
That was really powerful, because that was like 4 coins that if you don't even want to use that turn, you're going to save them for a future
I was being
turn.
able to do it every turn because of the
project.
trash.
Yeah, so that was a nice combo. So again, just the fact that it's 2 coins you can save up makes this card, I think, a decent buy probably for your engine at home. All right, the Swashbuckler. Neither of us went at this game. I'm going to say, though, overall, I like the card.
I do too. It's terrible though if you're trashing all your cards, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It's
because
just-
like it's a smithy, you get 3 cards, so that's fine. But the main shiner is having a discard pile to do this whole bottom part. Especially like just the facts about treasure chest here. I'm gonna skip to this. This is powerful.
Gaining a gold every turn.
Pretty
nuts.
It's pretty nice, especially if you have a big deck where you're gonna want more treasure, like gold specifically in that. This just is a free pickup.
Like if you're getting rid of your deck, Swashbuckler's an pickup. If you can pull off getting that treasure chest, it's really good. But with smaller amounts of cards, it becomes more difficult to get a discard pile. But if you have a discard pile, this is a fantastic pickup.
Yeah, just being able to generate a coffer if you have a discard pile, that makes this card worth 5. It's worth more than a smithy then. And if you have, like, you might be able to pull that off with Swashbuckler alone. But if you have things like Villain, where you're going to be able to get your coin token saved up a lot quicker, you're going to be able to grab this. We haven't had a game where this has switched hands, but it could.
It could.
So you definitely have to consider if somebody's going the Swashbuckler, if you need to compete to take the treasure chest from them. Because it might be worth it. Because getting that free gold, because potentially you could buy a province and just get a free gold with it.
Yep.
You could get a gold and a free gold with it. There's so much you can do with this ability that I think it makes Swashbuckler maybe one of the best 5 cards in the game. It could be up there.
It's going to be up there, but it also depends on what else. It's dependent upon the kingdom cards.
Yes.
Because if there's no trash cards in the set at all,
I would definitely go.
This is going to be one of the best 5 cards.
Because trashing was so common in this, I looked at Swashbuckler, thought about this, and how I've seen it be powerful, but I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go for having a discard pile, so I'm not going to just waste my time with that when I could put it somewhere else. But yeah, Swashbuckler, I want to hear other people's opinion about this, because I think it's going to be a pretty popular card.
And then our 2 projects. First one, Guild Hall. When you gain a treasure, you get a coffer. It's pretty nice.
I liked it because I knew I had to get golds for what I was doing. So just being able to get the coffer with it made it really nice.
You do have to pay 5 for it though, which makes you kind of go. You have to get 5 treasures in order to make any sort of payoff from this.
So if you are a player who buys a lot of treasures, or it's a set that you're going to get a lot of treasures, then it's great. If you're somebody who's going an engine, probably not so much.
I think for me, I could have not taken this and been okay.
Yeah, probably.
2 treasures.
It was definitely more valuable for me since I was getting the golds and I knew I needed to buy treasures because I had trashed all of these, and I didn't have as much coffer generation to just solely rely on that. I could also see going it like because there's a lot of cards here that you need to trash something to play it. So even if you need to pick up a copper just to keep that trash part going.
Then that's pretty good.
That's okay with the Guild Hall then, because you're getting a coffer with it, which I'm never going to complain when I get a coffer.
What if you get a curse with the coffer?
Might complain then. Well, unless I could trash the curse. All right, what's our last project here?
Fleet. After the game ends, there's an extra round of turns just for players with this.
You know, when I first looked at that, I was like, okay. It's a nice little mechanic. It was really fun, actually, in this set. I don't know how powerful it is. I think if you've got like a really close game, that can make or break it.
Yep.
And I think I decided at the point where I picked it up, I only won it because I had enough victory cards slowing me down that I knew a duchy would slow me down even more. Yep. I wanted to try to get that province. So I picked that up with the intention that if the game ended, the turn that I sacrificed the duchy, I might be able to get it in the future.
And I picked this up because I was behind.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that you'd get your 4 provinces, I'd get my 4 provinces, and you wouldn't have the time to pick this up. And then I could buy an estate. But you picked it up, and I was like, yep.
It's cool, though, to have something where the game won't just end right away and people get to do extra turns. I like that. That's a nice little project.
It'll be more interesting with more players.
Yeah, I agree.
Because in 2 players, both people pick it up. You're not really... It's just...
And it's a race for the provinces a lot with 2 players. When you have 3, there's a lot more dynamic to it. So, I I definitely want to see how Fleet works with that. So that was the set. Should we say openers before we review? What opener do you think you would do for 4-3 or 5-2?
5-2. I might do Swashbuckler, and then Ducat, because getting that Swashbuckler early, and the Ducat to give you more of the coffers, you might be able to pull that off pretty quickly.
Maybe. I feel like I would go Guildhall if that was like I drew the 5 first, because I know next I'm probably going to get the Ducat. Though I can't trash a coffer with it at the bottom.
Yeah.
So that's the one downside. But at least I get a coffer there. I could see doing that. I kind of wish I could trash it, so maybe that's not as good as I think. I feel like the 4-3 is a little nicer in this because you can downgrade.
Yep.
For the Ducat, and I do like the trash of Hideout.
I think I would switch to the Hideout Silver in this one.
Think so? That's what I did, right?
That's what you did.
I felt like because I was going to get rid of a lot of my coppers, I needed that silver just to keep the money up. Plus, I felt if I went the silver, I was going to get the 5s quicker. I had more potential to get that quicker, and I think I did. But yeah, I like this set. It was a fun little set. And Renaissance gets a thumbs up from me so far.
Yep.
This was a huge improvement over Nocturne, in my opinion.
And I think the funny thing is when I went through all the cards and I was looking at them, I'm like, man, some of these cards had like 2 or 3 more cards, which the big complaint about Nocturne was there's cards that had in cards, so adding cards. Except those were more a deck of cards adds a deck of cards.
Yeah, like at least when you play with Treasure Chest, it's always when you're playing with Swashbuckler, so they're stored together. So it doesn't add to the setup time. And it's the same way with the other artifacts. It does make it a little more complicated, but it's not like, I would say, overly complicated, like some of the like Adventures, Empires, or that stuff. I would say it adds the complexity that you would have expected from Prosperity or Seaside. Because it's really simple just to have... The artifacts, legit, are just... They're cards that sit off to the side, and if you pull something off with whatever action card they're tied to, you get to take the artifact. But be careful, because somebody else could take it from you. And I really like that mechanic. A lot of people will complain in Dominion about how there's not much interaction, and a lot of it comes down to attacking people.
Yep.
And while, like, taking somebody's artifact from them is kind of mean, it feels more like especially with the one artifact, like the flag, it feels like, oh, I got the flag now, it's mine. And it's more of a fun, like, oh, I'm going to get it back from you, rather than, oh, that was mean.
Yep.
So I give the artifacts a thumbs up there. What do you feel about projects?
I like the artifacts a lot, and I like the projects a lot. I think they're both good additions.
Are they your... So what's your favorite? Projects, landmarks, or events?
I don't know. I haven't played with all the projects or all the landmarks yet. Probably,
Mechanic-wise, would you say? I feel like projects might be my favorite. I like the mechanic of buying something, dropping a cube on it, and then I get it every turn.
Yeah.
There's something just... It's so nice and simple that I really like that. The events are cool because like it's something you can always buy, but it's not terribly different from just picking up the card. It's different enough, but this is just... It's way more different, and it adds a different feel. The landmarks are cool because they sit off to the side, but you're not really interacting with them. No. It's more like it's interacting with your deck the entire time. So this is kind of cool because it gives you just more choice in how you want to build up your deck during the game. So I like them as an addition. Still, like with all the other ones, would not play with more than 2 of any of these side cards. The big feature, though, Ben, is the coffers and villagers. So what's your thoughts?
I really like that they added a villager mechanic. Because
I thought you would.
I like that, and it goes extremely well. It adds a lot of diversity that you can put in different sets. Because...
Yeah, just if you took only Acting Troop from Renaissance and added it with a bunch of other cards, unlike like a lot of the cards in Nocturne, or even like Alchemy, where you won a bunch of cards from that set in, Acting Troop, it works perfectly. And in fact, I feel like that mechanic, I'm really curious to see because it's cool in this, the villager mechanic, but since you have so many villagers, it's like, yeah, okay. But mixing that in with the other sets that didn't have that mechanic before is going to be really cool. And I'm surprised that mechanic hasn't been here, in all honesty, because I think so many people, including you, have wanted to be able to save an action for when they need it.
That's what I use Tactician for.
Yeah, but even Tactician doesn't save as well as a villager sometimes.
No.
So that's a nice mechanic. I'm happy that they brought the coin token / coffer mechanic back. I'm glad they call it coffers because that sounds a lot better than coin token now that I think about it.
Yep.
Fits more with the immersive feel. So I'm glad they brought that back. They didn't add too many other, there's some more duration cards. Otherwise, I think we featured all the mechanics that are introduced in here. So a lot less overwhelming than Nocturne. So I feel safe to say you can skip a lot of the later expansions and go right to this should you feel you want to.
Yeah.
I like Adventures and Empires. They're fun expansions, but they definitely are for more experienced players. And it might just be the newness for me, but I think I still would skip over maybe those two to go to this. What's your opinion?
I think if I was getting the sets from scratch, I would put Renaissance. I'd get it kind of in the middle. I think that's when it fits best. Just because playing with just Renaissance, I haven't seen much diversity in the sets.
I definitely have liked it mixed more too.
I think it's a lot better when you have you can mix it with other sets. You get a lot more feel for the theme that Renaissance is going with the coffers and villagers. It's a lot more impactful when you add it with other sets. So that's where I'd put it.
I'd put it towards the top, just because you're getting a lot of cards with it still. Not as many as Nocturne, but for us, we didn't feel like we weren't going to play with any of the cards for this one. So I'd rank it up there with Prosperity, definitely. Prosperity is my favorite. I don't think this surpasses it in my book. I know a lot of people are putting it up there with that. I might even. After a lot of plays with this, especially once we mix it, right now I feel like it's going to get up there for me. It could be in my top 3 expansions. And I might even recommend it as one that people get early on. Especially if you like... If you're somebody who wants the save coins and actions for later, I think this alone makes it well worth buying over a lot of the other expansions. Seaside for me, I don't care for the duration cards as much.
That's
I like
my
this a lot more.
set.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people's favorite. I'd put this above Seaside, I think. Probably above Hinterlands.
I would put this above Seaside for newer players as well. But for experienced players, no. I like Seaside too much for that.
Yeah, how do you feel experienced players will feel about this? Because we kind of poo-pooed on Nocturne, but a lot of people do like it because it adds a lot of complexity to the game.
So I liked Nocturne's complexity. I didn't like the 10-15 minute increase setup and cleanup. But for this, I think it's a great set.
I like the learning curve a lot more for this.
I don't think it's overly complex. I think it'll mix extremely well with other sets.
I liked that, when we sat down to learn this, it felt really simple to pick up the mechanics, and it was more learning how to mix everything again, which is how I want Dominion to feel. Nocturne, I didn't get that feeling because I'm too busy learning just how a single card works, so I couldn't focus on how to mix it as easily with other stuff. So that's where I think Renaissance gets a big plus for me. So, good job. I don't know where they go from here. I was surprised they kept coming out with box sets, so I was always nervous about them, but it wasn't really until Nocturne where I was like, I don't know, maybe stop. So I'm happy they got one out that I was like, oh, okay, I like this. What do you think? Because this is it. We got everything except a few promo cards. So if they were to come out with a new box, what do they do with it?
The thing that I'm thinking of is there's some mechanics that people hate. The one was little used was the coin tokens, and now they've added an expansion that brought that back. I'm wondering if they might try to do something to bring potion cards or maybe redo that mechanic.
I wish they could do something like that, but I think it's just so hated by people now that they won't ever touch potions again. Because I don't know.
If there's a way that you could redo the entire mechanic to make it better.
I think the problem with the mechanic was just there were so few cards. So when you mix, because I think when you have the mechanic in alchemy works perfectly fine. It just does not work well, especially for like what we do on the show. A lot of the times we'll random everything together.
Yep.
I think when you do alchemy, it's harder to do that. Unless you have it set like in my app where it's like, if you're going to random one card, you got to at least random 3.
Yep.
So I feel like the only thing I could see them really adding more cards in for is something like I said last time, the reserve cards.
Yep.
I would love to see that again. So that's the only thing I really want to see come back. I love how we complained like that there wasn't a lot of duration cards for a while, even though I didn't like the mechanics. Like there's so few cards that are duration. Now I think we've got plenty. I don't think they need to add any more duration cards unless for a specific card it makes sense.
That's your opinion.
That's my opinion. I would rather have them add more reserves than durations because there's so many sets where you get the durations now. And I don't know if people hate the reserve stuff at all. I'd rather see the reserve stuff.
I think if you put more reserve cards in, it becomes more impactful.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you just throw one card in, it's like, eh.
We're not seeing reserves often in our games when we random everything. Like when we saw world characters, like, oh yeah, that was a mechanic. I'm trying to think what others... Like, we got to see the coffers. That's the main mechanic. That was Adventure's thing, was the reserve. I guess the debt mechanic, maybe. It's not my favorite mechanic, but I could see making it just, like, show up more, so it randoms more. Anything new, though? Because I'm thinking, I'd be happy if this is the last one. I feel set. This is where I'm like... Especially because we're going to design a box to store all our cards in, so... It will kind of make us upset if we design the box and then we got to store more and we aren't prepped for it.
Yep.
But I'm trying to think what type of new card can they do that would give this feel where it's an expansion that it keeps Dominion simple like it's been, because a vast majority of the audience like this. They like just being able to simply look at cards, understand, hey, this is just going to be 4 villagers and trash it. The complexity is mixing them. How are you going to mix them together in your deck to be the best? I can't think of any new mechanics to add because this is like the Save the Villagers was the last one on my mind.
Yep. You
don't have any?
I can't think of any right now. Who knows if I'll think of any in the future?
Yeah, I'm pretty set though. I'd be happy if this is the last because I'd like to end on a good note with Dominion's expansions. And really, if they add another box, we're still not going to be able to hit every possible set in our lifetime. So we did the math back when I think before we had Adventures, and it was a huge number. So now just like think about it.
27 billion games or something.
Oh, man. So, yeah, that's this week's episode, everybody. I guess who knows what's happening next. Leave comments if you have sets of cards you want to see, expansions. We did mention about the live streaming thing. So if you're interested in watching a live stream or joining potentially, make sure you let us know about that. Because I think we'll definitely try to set that up. And other games too. At some point we're going to have to hit some other card games and whatnot. So if you have a recommendation, let us know. Anything else you have to say before we get out of here?
I think so.
All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time on Dominating Dominion.
Bye.